So we all like things we prefer, right? And that's pretty obvious. You think of your morning routine and the coffee you like to drink every morning or tea you like to drink or whatever the case may be. In work, we also all have our preferences, this sort of familiarity or this sort of comfort or this preference that we have with things that we prefer. We all have this. We all want to pursue things that we enjoy, that we are familiar with, and we, generally speaking, at least in my experience and me personally, we resist change. Maybe not as overt as other people, but change is something that's extremely difficult to manage. And that's in project management, there's terms like change management, where you have to sort of think of ways of how we can organically and naturally and most effectively implement some sort of change happening in an organization, right? So there's all this brain power really focused on how do we change this situation, this structure, this system in a way that's not going to minimize the friction, that is going to minimize the friction, right? So before I get more into that though, I do want to say welcome to the practical place where project management meets real life. My name is Ryan Holguin. I am a certified project management professional. And on this channel, I do like to talk about project management. I like to talk about career growth, things that I struggle with as a professional. I feel like I wish people would have told me whenever I was younger in my career. And so whenever an idea comes, I write it down and then I create a video about it and hopefully it benefits you. The channel has been growing. I've been doing this for about a year now. We have about 291 subscribers at the time of filming this video. So I just want to say thank you to those people out there who have chosen to subscribe to this channel and really keep up with those things. When I'm not talking about project management, sometimes I like to dabble in sports and data and analytics. I really want to increase my skills in that area. And so sometimes I might make a video about that. So if anything like that interests you, I would encourage you to subscribe, join the community, come alongside this journey with us. So as I was saying, there is something in psychology called the mere exposure effect, which is basically a fancy way to say people prefer things they are familiar with. Now, this is super obvious. Why would you need, the world of psychology to validate something that we know? But actually, in my career, I've really realized things that are common sense or seem common sense to me or to somebody else aren't always common sense to everybody. And that actually really helps me in my career as a project manager because I can now empathize with where people are at. I don't have to get frustrated at where somebody is because they don't understand something like I understand something, or I'm very thankful when somebody's gracious with me because I don't understand something they understand. And as a project manager, if we have this sort of understanding that there is this thing called the mere exposure effect, we can now be more mindful of this. And there's a few ways this could play out. I'm going to talk about one negative and one positive way that just sort of stuck out to me as I was kind of thinking about this idea and how maybe you can utilize it in your career, whether you're a project manager or not. I think if you work with anybody, you have a team, you have customers, stakeholders, wherever you're at, I think this is something that you could, start using today. And this is going to be more of a framework we're going to talk about. It's not necessarily prescriptive tools, although I'll give some examples of what you can do. And so that's a lot of this channel as well. I don't try to give you a prescription of do X and get Y. I try to give frameworks that can benefit, a multitude of people. You don't have to be in a specific context to really implement some of these frameworks or ideas, or at least that's how I see it. So, a positive way that you could really utilize or be mindful of this mere exposure effect is, let's say you're, a project manager and you work remotely like I do. This is practical for me. And one of the ways that you want people to build trust with you is getting familiar with you. When I'm on a new team, it's really difficult to sort of understand the lay of the land. And so you just do that with time. And so as a project manager, you are kind of expected, at least in my case, to meet with your team, meet with your stakeholders on a regular basis. In my case, it's weekly. And so in those meetings and in any meeting that I'm on, I try to really have my camera on. I really try to contribute to the meeting, at least say one thing that contributes to the meeting in a positive, constructive way. I try not to dominate the conversations, but really just having my camera on, having that presence, being available all the time to my team, it really builds that that familiarity with my team, and they start to then trust me, assuming that I'm doing my job well and I'm helping them. But so assuming you're helping your team and you're actually providing value, that airtime, the more airtime that you can get with them, or at least that I've gotten with them, it's really helped build that trust. And now they're familiar with me, and now we rely on each other pretty regularly, and they trust me, and they send me problems that they have and suggestions that they have for increasing, for improving the tools that we use, because they trust that I'm going to be able to, find the solution and get it done. It's because, though, I didn't just tell them from the jump, hey, I'm this new project manager, you got to trust me, and I'm going to, make your life a lot better. No, I can say those things, but it takes time to then build that trust, to get them familiar with you. So you have to then expose yourself to them, and thus creating the mere exposure effect in a positive way. Now, in a negative way, I would say that this may plague personally, you may have to, do an inventory check on yourself, is, we all talk about, we have goals and we want to be more productive and more efficient, more effective, all these buzzwords. We want to accomplish our goals. We want to achieve the goals that the company's set for us or we set for ourselves. But honestly, sometimes this mere exposure effect, this familiarity with tools specifically, can get in the way, because I find myself, whenever our company might implement a software change or change at a system or an organizational level, it starts to then create this friction amongst the people that question, why are we doing this? Well, why are we doing this? The way that was working before, was just fine. We had a good system going. Now, if you notice in that, the way we were working before, terms like that is really essentially somebody saying, yeah, I have the mere exposure effect. I am really familiar and comfortable with the current system or the current state of how things are going. Why do we need to change things? And that's actually me. I struggle with that as well from time to time, of trying to wrestle with, why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. However, if I back up as a professional and I think about what my career goals are, and I think about what my personal goals are and my personal convictions are, my main goal is to be, and this is different for everybody, but I'll just speak for myself. It's like we're having a cup of coffee here together, right? I got my coffee here, so we're just talking. So this might be different for you, but for me, I want to be as valuable of an asset to my company as possible. So if that's one of my main goals that I have for myself, the way that I accomplish that doesn't really matter, right? It's not about, I want to be as valuable to my company as possible if I get to use the softwares I'm familiar with. No, I just want to be as valuable to my company as possible. I want to be the best project manager as possible that I can be. That's my goal, right? And so if that's the case, it doesn't really matter the means in which I accomplish that. It's just whatever is set in front of me, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And I think if we sort of understand that, and we're mindful of the fact that we have these biases as project managers or aspiring project managers or professionals, then we know I need to step back. Anytime you start to feel this sort of friction or this tension in yourself of resisting a change or resisting an idea, I want you to consider, am I just familiar with what I've always known, and that's why I'm resistant? Even though what I know may be good, it may be a good thing, but maybe this is a better thing. Maybe this is just a different thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. One of the most frustrating things as a project manager, and I'm sure as a person, but as a project manager, is whenever you have a goal you need to accomplish, you have a project you need to get completed, and you just have stakeholders that just are resistant to the process. That's really frustrating. Now, on the inverse, think about how you can be that person sometimes, which is true of all of us, I would say. We all have moments where we're resistant to change because we're biased towards our own ideas and towards what we know and what we're familiar with. This video is about encouraging you to utilize this in positive ways. Get that airtime with your team, get them familiar with you, get leaders. If you're trying to get promotions, get leaders, the ones that can make decisions, the ones that move the needles, get them familiar with the work that you provide. Get them exposed to what you do in an organic way, so that when that promotion or when it's time to have that conversation, they remember you. They are familiar with your work, and it's consistent. It's been consistent. But in the negative way, be mindful of the fact that we are all resistant to change sometimes because we're comfortable with what we know and what we're familiar with. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just something to be mindful of. And I never want to be the person that's causing friction, especially when change is happening. I pride myself on somebody that learns technology fast, that learns software fast, that's a lifelong learner. And so if I'm somebody that claims that but also is super resistant to change, those are two sort of inconsistent things I can be. And I don't want to live in this sort of hypocritical way. So that's my thoughts on, how being mindful of the mere exposure effect can help you and potentially hinder you as a project manager and a professional. Yeah, but what do you guys think? Is this a term you're familiar with? Is this a bunch of corporate jargon I'm using? Curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this topic and how maybe you've seen it play out in your workplace. If you found this video somewhat edifying or helpful, I would encourage you to like it and subscribe here to The Practical Place. As I said in the beginning of the video, super thankful for the 291 subscribers that I have here. It's a small little community, but I'm very thankful because to me that says that there's people out there that are like-minded, that they want to grow in their career, they want to better themselves. And so yeah, I just want to get these sorts of videos out there to folks that are like me, that wish they had somebody to talk to, wish they had somebody to bounce ideas off of, and start to develop some confidence and competence in my skills and abilities. So that's going to do it for today. As I said, I'm Ryan Holguin here with The Practical Place. I will see you in the next video.